Alright, BookTube. It's time for my third tag video in 2 weeks. You all set, Jason? Go. There we go. My favorite ball player right there. Hello, BookTube. Today's tag is called the New York Book Tag. Perfect for me. It's like, I practically lived almost like half my life in New York because my family's from there. So this tag is absolutely perfect for me. This was created by Jim's Books Reading and Stuff. And I was tagged by Farrah over at Bookstalgic. One of my favorite people, Farrah. And if you're not subscribed to her channel already, please do, because the fall's coming and she lives out in upstate New York. You're going to see some wonderful nature footage from her. So thank you. I will tag both of them, of course, in the description box below so you can check their channels out. Okay, there are 11 prompts. Let's get started. Prompt number 1. What is your favorite book set in or around New York? Strangely enough, I have not read too many books that were set in or around New York, but so far what I have read, by far my favorite, and I've mentioned this multiple times on the channel, Brooklyn by Colm Toibin. This one. And this is a book, this is actually, the cover of this book, this is actually the movie adaptation. One of the, I have to say, I've seen that movie like so many times, it's probably as faithful an adaptation as you'll see. And then one of the few cases where I actually like the movie tie-in better than the real cover. We have our main character, Ailish. It's a young girl from Ireland, like 1930s. The economy wasn't looking so good, so she moves to Brooklyn, New York. So in the background, at the Brooklyn Bridge. And one of the main reasons this specifically ties in with me, is that my family is originally from Brooklyn. Like, I'm born and raised in New Jersey, but they're all from Brooklyn. In the story too, like our main character, Ailish, she attends Brooklyn College. That was my mother's alma mater. So yeah, and plus the time period, my grandparents there's so many things that connect this book to my family's past. Prompt number 2. New York is famous for its skyscrapers. What is the highest building you have ever been up? One word, nope. I can handle a lot of things. I do not like heights. So, I know it's all psychological too. Like, I can sit in a plane, like seatbelt in, like look out the window, up or down while we're landing and taking off, and I have no problem at all. But if I'm like free to move on my own in a skyscraper, looking out the window, nah, I can't do it. So the heights are the one thing that get to me. I remember one time, oddly enough, I was in New York City. I was at Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. I didn't know this at the time, or else I would have taken the stairs. But the elevator in that building was on the outside of the building. I did not know that. So luckily, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of closed my eyes as we were taking the flight up. I don't know how many floors, but it felt like a lifetime. But I made it, so we're all good. All right, number 3. New York, New York. So good they named it twice. What is the last book you reread? Funny enough, the last book I reread I just finished the other day. It's for the Stephen King book club I'm in on Fable. Our latest pick was The Gunslinger, book 1 in the Dark Tower series. I first picked this up back when I was a teenager. I was just discovering Stephen King. I saw this on the bookshelf, it looked pretty cool, so I read it way back then. And I never continued the series since then. So now in my book club, we read The Stand a couple months ago. Introduced to Randall Flagg. And like I said, I just finished this one. I imagine at some point we're going to read all the 7 Dark Tower books. I'm looking forward to it. I enjoyed it very much. It was I know a lot of people they try to dismiss it, or they say, oh, you can skip it, just read the rest. I didn't really see that. I wasn't blown away by it, but it was actually pretty fascinating. And I love the Man in Black character, especially his big speech at the end. It was kind of trippy, but I enjoyed it a lot. Number 4. American Psycho was a disturbing novel set in New York. What is the most disturbing book you have ever read? I am a bit of a hypocrite with this one because I always tell myself, I don't like reading disturbing stuff. But I do like reading some thrillers, so it's I don't know what I'm getting into until I read it. So if you ask me what's disturbing, I really don't know. And until it's too late and I've already read it. I guess so far, but the few horror books I have read that could be quote-unquote disturbing, I'll probably go with The Silence of the Lambs. It's by Thomas Harris. It's actually the second Hannibal Lecter book. I did read the first one, Red Dragon. I gotta reread it. Maybe the first time I read that, something didn't connect with me because I didn't really like it. So I gotta try rereading that again. Yeah, this one, Silence of the Lambs. Once again, it was pretty close to the movie as well. It's Buffalo Bill. Oh God, Hannibal Lecter, how he escapes from prison. Pretty dark stuff. So Like I said, there ain't too much disturbing stuff unless I don't know what I'm getting into. So I have to go with Silence of the Lambs so far as the most disturbing thing I ever read. Number 5. Where were you on 9/11? I remember, for obvious reasons, I remember a lot of details about this day. Remember, I was in 8th grade, so I was in school. And, well, first things first, we were not told what happened until the very end of the day, during the last class. Like, our principal came around the classrooms, told us what happened. We wheeled out the TVs on like the racks, then we plugged them in and watched the news for like the last class of the day. And I'll say this, one thing I do remember very vividly, the whole day was just weird. It was like, we're going from class to class. You see the teachers are in the corner, they're like really worried about something, like they're talking to each other. It was like that the whole day. The whole day was just really bad vibes. And let's see, one visual I remember too. Like I said, we didn't know what happened until the end of the day. I remember very vividly, I'm in the classroom, like the windows to my left, and I remember I should mention too, I'm in the middle of New Jersey, just to add a little more detail to the story. Like, if I hopped on a train, it's probably like an hour and a half ride into New York City. I'm right smack in the middle of New Jersey, and I see, so all morning, out the left window of the classroom, all the ambulances, just like one ambulance after another, just like whizzing by. They're all going up north. Like all morning long, just one ambulance after another. So, yeah. Needless to say, that was definitely a visual I'll never forget. That one little detail will probably stay with me forever. I don't think I'll ever forget that one. All right. So that was a bit of a downer, but the next question is definitely an upper. It's like, what is your favorite movie set in New York? Okay, where do you start with that? Like, if you can't make a decent movie that takes place in New York, you don't belong. You should find another job. It's like what do you want? Like true crime? You want romance, comedy? Like there's so many stories in that city that like they pretty much write themselves for you. But I do have a very specific one that's my favorite. And I guess share a little funny story how I came about this movie, because if this completely random set of events didn't happen, who knows if I would have ever seen this movie. We're back to 2014. My job at the time, we report to work in the morning. They had like biometric screenings for the health insurance. Some physicians come in, they test your blood on the spot, your height and weight, all that stuff. It's for health insurance. So I got there in the morning. I did my test, and I was done by 10 a.m. My problem was I was working the closing shift that day, so I had like 3 hours to kill. I lived just far enough that going back and forth to home would be a complete waste of time. So I thought, okay, well, I got to kill this time somehow. Right next to where I work was the movie theater. I figured, okay, I got to catch an early movie. If it's short enough that I can get out before work, I'm going to see it. Doesn't matter what it is, don't care. If it's short enough and starts early enough, I'm going to see it. And there was a movie playing at the time called Begin Again, starring Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley. He said, I didn't even know what it was about. It still perplexes me when I think about it. I never saw a single trailer for this movie at the time. And, those are two big stars there. So, I didn't even know it existed. I just saw the two of them. Oh, I love those two. Big fans. And, like I said, it was short enough and started early enough, so that was it. I went to see this movie. Oh, my God. First of all, and it's a star-studded movie, too. Adam Levine plays Keira Knightley's boyfriend. Young James Corden was her friend in the movie, too. Who else? Haley Steinfeld. She had just done True Grit with Jeff Bridges before this. She plays Mark Ruffalo's daughter. And the premise of the movie is Ruffalo. He's down and out. He's separated from his wife. He's kind of losing his relationship with his daughter. He's just a mess. And he's drunk. He stumbles into a place in New York, a real place called Cafe Wa. I have a great story about that place. I will get to that in just a moment. So he goes into Cafe Wa and he sees Keira Knightley on stage with her guitar just singing. And in his drunkenness, he's watching her, and he fills in the rest of the song in his head because he's a music producer. And it's just her on a guitar on stage, but in his head, he's filling in the other instruments. He's working out the whole production. I saw that one scene. I'm I'm going to love this movie. Right, it was so wonderful, and that was just the beginning. Sure enough, 10 years later, it's still like I said, it's still my favorite movie, but set in New York City to this day. Like, there's part of the plot too is like he wants to sign her, he wants to make an album, so they go all over New York City. Like we record outdoors. Like it's such a wonderful feel-good movie. And last I checked, it is currently streaming for free here on YouTube. So rest assured, I will put a link in the description box below for you. I couldn't recommend this movie enough. It was just wonderful. So once again, begin again. Okay, next question. Number 7. Have you ever been to New York? Well, we already know that answer. The next part of that question is, when was the last time you visited New York? So I have to say, I haven't been there in like almost like 6 years. I don't know why. Like time goes by. I'm not sure why it's been so long. But the last time I was there, I went to the Museum of Modern Art, or MoMA, as it's abbreviated. And I remember I was there with like my girlfriend at the time. And I'm thinking, modern art's not really my thing, but I'm curious about it. No, it was amazing. Like there were so many like awesome like paintings in there. There's like wonderful sculptures too. Because you know, if you're like me, you think like modern art. Like I don't really understand it. It's like it's kind of like a pile of rubble, and like there's something in there, some message in there. Like I try to understand, but modern art just for the most part just doesn't speak to me. But like I said, MoMA, like some of the coolest paintings ever, some like sculptures and whatnot. They like some pieces by like Andy Warhol, like back in there, and one painting in there, one of the most famous paintings ever. I didn't even know was in MoMA. Remember, like we walk into a room, walk around the corner. There's like a crowd of people at this wall. I'm like, what are they staring at? It was Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. Let's see, I know it doesn't come up well on the screen here, but even then, like I don't know why, like this image just like sticks with me. I can just stare at it forever. And oh my god, when you see this painting in person, there's nothing like it. I think I just stood there for like a couple minutes and just stared at it. And I'm no art historian or artist in any way. I just know what I like, and I just love this. I could stare at it forever. So yeah, MoMA, Metropolitan. I'm sorry, excuse me, the Museum of Modern Art. There you go. Sorry, I completely forgot. I mentioned before. I had to backtrack for a second. I mentioned this. I had a story about that Cafe Wah up in New York. That place has been around since like 1960. It's like a little music venue. I worked with a guy a few years ago. Hilarious guy. I always called him like the flower don, like as stereotypical New York Italian as you can be. But he was like in his 20s, in the 60s, so he's like a flower child too. And like he used to like take photos for a lot of press back in the day. And he showed me some of his photos he took from Cafe Wah. Like, you know, like when you want to show someone something, you have a big smile on your face because you know this person's gonna be so excited to see it. So he showed me pictures on his phone, some of his photos that he took. He says to me, "Look who's on stage." On stage in Cafe Wah. Couldn't believe it. It was Jimi Hendrix. How cool is that? Jimi Hendrix at Cafe Wah. Like I said, that place has been there since the 60s. Since 1960s, should be even longer. So yeah. If I ever make it back to New York City, I've never been there myself. I gotta check that place out. Alright, back to the questions. So number 8. Who is your favorite painter from New York? Or what is your favorite painting of New York? Now, of all the questions, this one stumped me the most because you asked me like my favorite writer, actor, musician. I can name plenty of those. I don't know any painters. I would think like, geez, like famous paintings, painters. I was stumped. I really had no answer. So, but then I remembered it was a while ago in the local news. There was a muralist, if you will. His name is Andre Trenier. Andre Trenier from the Bronx. He recently painted these murals of famous New York Yankees. Like a block around the stadium, there's like this terminal market in the Bronx. It's like right across the street, I believe, from like the children's museum up there. And he painted these murals of like 6 different Yankee legends, and well, 5 legends really, and Aaron Judge, their current captain now. And it was covered on the local news. Like all the players were there too. It was pretty big. So, right near painter, yeah, I'm gonna go with Andre. And I found a clip too of when the local news covered it. So, as always, I will put that in the description box below for you. Number 9. What is your favorite song about New York? Excuse me. Okay. Okay. Some folks like to get away, take a holiday from the neighborhood. So, anyway, New York State of Mind by Billy Joel. By far my favorite. Like, a little piano in the opening. Gets me every time. And the words ring true to me as well. Okay. New York, number 10. New York is seen as the publishing capital of the world. What is your favorite publishing house? I honestly had no idea how to answer that because I've never bought a book because of the publishing house. I bought it because of the story or the writer. And so trying to answer that, I looked at my bookshelf, my books over here. I'm thinking like, I'm looking at the publishing house. I'm like, who pops up the most? My God, there were a lot. Like, there were so many, like the big ones, like Harper, like Penguin Classic. Penguin. Mainly I like the Penguin Classics because they're somewhat expensive too. And like Penguin, they publish one of my favorite characters, Walt Longmire, that mystery series. Then Putnam Books publishes one of my other favorite characters, the Joe Pickett mystery series. But to answer the question, to go with my favorite, I guess I'll go with the big one, Simon and Schuster. You know, like they own so much. Like they own Scribner and Sons, or just Scribner now, and then they publish Stephen King. So I guess I got to go with Simon and Schuster. And also, I realize this is Shake-Timber after all. All my Shakespeare plays here. Read the side there, Simon and Schuster paperback. You know, but it's the Folger Shakespeare Library, but Simon & Schuster paperback. So I gotta go with Simon & Schuster. Go with the big ones. Okay, folks, 11th and final prompt. What is your favorite Broadway musical? First of all, folks, I gotta say this. Thinking my answer to this one just made me sad. Because Broadway is just so unaffordable now. It's like it's so expensive. That's why pretty much every musical you see now, the big ones at least, the successful ones, it's like the music of Tina Turner, the music of Huey Lewis, Motown. You know, I love all that music, but oh my God, it's kind of sad. Like when that's the only successful Broadway musicals are shows with established soundtracks. You know, you want to go to a musical, you want to hear something original, and it's impossible for the place too. Like I don't even bother watching the Tonys anymore because like you see like a great play, you're like, wow, I want to check that out. Then you go look for tickets online, and it closed like months before. It's like, what the hell, people? And but I will say this: the last time I saw a Broadway show was 10 years ago. I saw Hamilton actually. This was before the Tony Awards too. We still had to buy our tickets like 3 months in advance, and they were still expensive. Like my mother actually treated the family too, like she wanted to see it, so we saw it. One thing I have to mention too, this is before the Tony Awards, so they couldn't gouge the prices on you. Or they had no reason to gouge the prices as much as they could because they hadn't won any awards yet, but the hype was on. And I remember that too, like at the first intermission, like intermission starts, I remember I turned to my mother, I'm like, this is really special. Like we were all blown away. Even the guy, Leslie Odom Jr., who played Aaron Burr, I guess we saw him on a good night because I remember the whole ride home. Me and my family and I, like everyone was amazing. Like all we talked about was Leslie Odom Jr. on the drive home. I remember that very vividly. And, you know, script. I'm going to give you one more musical too that I've always loved since I was a kid. One called The King and I. Classic too. Now, this musical has been around for decades now. And I remember, it's funny. So when I saw this too, like I mentioned how Broadway is unaffordable nowadays. Back then, remember, I was a kid in elementary school. Like some of my classmates, our parents, we all got tickets. And we all went as a group. We rented a bus back then. We went to the city, and one of the plays we saw was The King and I. And at the time, it starred Lou Diamond Phillips. He was the king back then. It was a big role for him. I remember when the show was over, like my classmates, our parents and I, we were gathered by the front of the first couple rows, and Lou actually came out then and chatted with us. A very cool experience. Like the nicest guy, and even to this day, he's my guy. Like whenever he's involved in something, I'm always tuning in. Yeah, really nice guy. It was a great experience too. And just throwing this out there too. You know who's also from New York? Rodney Dangerfield. It's like I don't respect the day I was born. When I was born, the doctor picked me up and smacked me. I found out the nurse, she got a few in too. Anyway, folks, now it's time to tag some people. Let's see. What do you call this? A ditto tag? Like, these are two people that, or two channels rather, that Farrah already tagged. I'm tagging myself because I really want to hear their answers too. First of all, we got Dave and Olive over at Book Blather. Dave and his family, they're New Englanders now, but he's originally from New Jersey. So I'm sure he'd have some good answers for this. And Joe and Mary of Book Buds. These two are absolutely hilarious. Like, not only do they do like reviews, they do scenes and they act them out for us. Yeah, they're hilarious. Please go check those two of them out. And who else? Let's see. A little let's see. Let's go international here too. How about, I'm going to tag Emily. She tagged me in the Beauty and Books tag a week ago. And let's see, this is my third tag in the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to tag Emily now too. Cool. Kind of curious what people overseas have to say to these answers as well. Also, I've never asked Emily this yet, but she is an interpreter. I know she's gotten to live in a lot of cool places. I'm curious if she ever lived in New York. So, Emily, have you ever lived in New York, and how many languages do you speak? All right, folks, have a good one. Say goodnight to Jason and Jimmy. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.